Let's talk about it. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. The Munsters is now on Netflix, VOD, Blu-ray, DVD. We're going to talk about it right now. Is it worth your time? Well, Lily is a typical 150-year-old vampire who's looking for the man of her nightmares until she lays eyes on Herman, a 7-foot-tall green experiment with a heart of gold. It's love at first shock as these two ghouls fall fangs over feet for each other in a Transylvanian romance. Unfortunately, it's not all smooth sailing in the cemetery, as Lily's father has other plans for his beloved daughter's future, and they don't involve her new bumbling beau. Bumbling beau. This, of course, is a reboot of the 1960s show The Munsters and is rated PG for suggestive material, scary images, and very brief language. If a movie ever fit the PG rating, this one definitely does, because there's really not much in there other than, like I said, some suggestive elements and, some sly adult jokes and what otherwise feels like a kid's movie. That's not necessarily what it's intended on being, I think. Rob Zombie is our director here. We know Rob Zombie from numerous interesting projects. You have 3 from Hell, The Devil's Rejects, the Halloween reboots, and a few of Rob Zombie's movies I've actually responded to because I appreciate the attempt at bringing a distinct style to the table, and style is definitely what this movie has. The Munsters not only commits to that 1960s look and feel, which is a cool concept, right? Like, oh, I like a nice throwback, but you have to deliver a compelling story if you're trying to do that, but it also includes numerous crazy edits and transitions, zooming in and out on our characters. You have different backgrounds and graphics, and a few of these ideas are directly, pulled in from the 1960s Munsters series. I like the commitment to, bringing in a lot of practical effects and elements. The makeup is really good. The set design's really good. The backgrounds are really good. When you're talking the behind-the-scenes commitment from the crew, the fact that it looked like they put a lot of money into the sets and the backgrounds and the makeup and the costumes is really, really cool. Unfortunately, everything that I just mentioned has nothing to do with the story and the tone. We're just talking visuals. But even then, I could talk about the look and feel of this film beyond the backgrounds and the sets and the set design. We're talking cinematography. We're talking overabundance of style. And then just the idea of making this look so cheap. It not only feels like a television movie, it feels like a television show from the 80s or 90s, but they did nothing to modernize it, nothing to make it feel authentic in 2022. It just feels like you're watching a really cheap effort from a filmmaking standpoint. Beyond that, I look at some of these performances. They're not good. I love Richard Brake. I love Dee Wallace. I love Jeff Daniel Phillips. I enjoy this cast just looking at the cast. But when you're talking about their actual performances, and I think a lot of this comes down to direction, it's like they couldn't deliver a line of dialogue to make it feel realistic. And I understand this movie's not supposed to feel realistic. It's, campy and cheesy and wacky. That's what The Munsters is. But taking that a step further, you could have given them dialogue and could have given them, direction to deliver that dialogue to at least make it feel like there's some heart there, like it's coming from the soul. And I never felt the soul, because Frankenstein. But I never felt that. I never felt an ounce of care from the actual writing. The writing is abysmal. They're just kind of going from plot point to plot point. There's no structure to this story. I was trying to figure out what the goal of this entire thing was, other than to, get these two main characters together to form that relationship, obviously falling in love with each other. That's all. It's fine and dandy. It's sweet, if you will. And if you're a fan of the original The Munsters, you're going to get a lot of references and callbacks, so that's cool. But you have to give us an interesting relationship. You have to give us chemistry between two characters. And you have to be able to look past the style of this movie. I could not tell you the point of this movie. I get the point. It's to bring back the Munsters. Everybody loves the Munsters. Most kids probably don't know what the Munsters is, but I understand that. But we're talking about watching this movie. I'm like, where is this going? Is there going to be an interesting story beyond, following the very standard formula of creating Herman, allowing us to realize who these characters are, bringing together Herman and Lily, allowing them to fall in love with each other, and not giving us any type of story or interesting structure beyond that, focusing on the jokes. This movie doesn't know how to tell a joke. They'll tell a joke within a moment. They'll tell a joke and look at the camera. And every time it happened, I don't know if I laughed once. I appreciate the attempt at bringing some humor to an otherwise bland story, but every time it happened, I'm sitting here like, is this supposed to be so cheesy and ridiculous? I'm like, oh, it's like the 1960s. I get what they're doing, but you have to give us a good story. It feels like a TV special, like a reunion show, except this time, instead of a cast, it's characters, and they're on screen. You're like, oh, I recognize that character. And in 5 minutes in, you're like, what's the point of me watching other than saying, oh, I recognize that character? Because everything that's happening, like my brain at a point was just kind of like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why is this continuing to go the way it's going? In terms of story and line delivery, talking about Herman Munster, like the cheese, not monster, Munster. Talking about the creation of Herman, the guy says, it's alive. The other guy says, oh, really? And then it cuts back to him and he says, no, I'm just talking about my pet cockroach. These moments on television, and granted, this was a moment that did set up the story to happen a bit later, talking about a comedian dying, but they used that, what could have been a really important moment in the film, to make a dumb joke. Everything that they do here is an effort to build up a moment just to make a joke to pay off on that moment, but the joke never paid off. And because of that, we hardly ever get any emotion or emotional attachment to these characters. Now, here's the thing. If you're able to watch this and not roll your eyes the entire movie, if you're able to appreciate the commitment to what they were trying to do, because I see what Rob Zombie was trying to do with this film. I see it. I understand it. But the script isn't there. The way this movie plays out isn't there. And the execution was really, really poor. So I didn't like this movie whatsoever, but I could see how you watch it. You're just like, okay, or you watch it and you're laughing, but you're laughing for the wrong reasons, but it becomes that type of film that you can go back to and revisit because you are laughing for the wrong reasons. Before I give you my number, what'd you think of The Munsters? Where did you watch The Munsters, and did you watch the original The Munsters? The Munsters lacks charm due to its style over substance mentality. The set design is excellent, but everything about this script and its presentation is poor. This is a really tough movie to get through, I guess, unless you're in the right mindset. I wasn't. I'm going to 20% with my score. You may say, Austin, that sounds generous, but again, I appreciate the look of the sets and the effects, but that's it. That's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me in this video. I'll see you soon.